what are some of the considerations if you've got a dealer that, is looking at a DOWC program? Well, one of the first things we noticed back when these programs kind of came to prominence a few years back is a lot of our clients that had existing reinsurance programs were interested in looking at the DOWCs, but they had no idea what impact the new DOWC program might have on their existing reinsurance companies. And the biggest impact is kind of an unintended tax consequence. Let's say, Mark, you're a dealer and you own 100% of a reinsurance company, and you now form a new DOWC that you own 100% of. Assuming that DOWC is writing in excess of the 831B annual premium threshold, which this year is $2.65 million, your reinsurance company now is no longer going to be able to make the 831B election as it continues. Whether you put that reinsurance company in runoff and it's not generating any positive premium, or you're continuing to use that reinsurance company for GAP and other products that don't go into your DOWC. The reason is the DOWC company is now part of the control group with your reinsurance company. So again, not knowing that ahead of time, that could cost hundreds of thousands of dollars of additional tax in the runoff of your reinsurance company or the continued operation. Now, obviously, there's things we can do to mitigate that. We can look at the ownership of the DOWC, the ownership of the reinsurance companies, and try to create, scenarios where, we don't have a control group. So, Mark, we liquidate your company, or we have you sell part of your company to key employees or other family members, and make sure that reinsurance company continues to be able to be eligible for the 831B election. So kind of a very important point, but that's probably the biggest thing that we see that people don't take into consideration when they rush to kind of jump into these programs. The other thing really is how committed is the dealer to the program. And the reason being, in a reinsurance program, if you've got a dealer that starts that reinsurance company and writes for 3 or 4 years, sells the store, and then, is retired as an example, that dealer can let that reinsurance company run off, or he can go back to the administrator and carrier and see if they will recapture the remaining insurance liability so he can shut the company down. So maybe you let the company run off for 2 or 3 years, and when the unearned premium gets down to a lower level, when you're not leaving as much, future profit on the table, you may just say it makes more sense for me to liquidate my company now. So I'll go back to the administrator and have them take back those insurance liabilities. In a DOWC program, we typically can't do that because who's the obligor in the contract? It's not the administrator, third-party administrator. It's the DOWC. So generally, you're not going to find somebody who's willing to take that remaining insurance liability. So if you get into these programs and decide they're not your cup of tea after 2 years, you may be stuck running that company off for 10 years. So again, a lot of things to think about when you look at this structure, and make sure that you're 100% in.